Everything you need to know about Flic Flac. I think I covered everything. Flic Flac, this step is so mysterious and so confusing to so many dancers. Even professional dancers seem confused by this step, where they seem to avoid teaching it, or they don't even really know what the purpose of Flic Flac is anyway. Fear not, I am here to demystify Flic Flac for you. Now, I figured there would be dozens of Flic Flac videos out there already. Like, someone had to have done Flic Flac by now. It's so confusing. So many people want to know what it is, how to do it. Like, how come somebody else didn't beat me to it? But no, I can't really find any good comprehensive Flic Flac tutorials out there. There was this one Korean channel that did a really beautiful demonstration with the feet, but there was no voiceover or no verbal explanation. And then the other Flic Flac videos that are out there, they're just man, they're okay, but they're not to the level of detail that I would want from a tutorial. So let's get into it. So I think most people understand what the flicking foot does. It goes from coup de pied to coup de pied. But it seems most of the confusion is about what the standing leg or the turning leg does, and why we do Flic Flac at all if it's so confusing and nobody really knows how to execute it without feeling a little weird. So while you're probably most familiar with Flic Flac at the bar, it was also traditionally incorporated into center combinations, for example a transition step in an adagio, and it is still very frequently used in character choreography, although it's done with a flexed foot and it's much more stylized and flashy. Now, if you go back and look at these black and white film clips from the 40s, you will see that the Vaganova students began and finished their Flic Flac with an open, extended leg. The standing foot remained flat for the first flick, but by the time you finished your second flac, you had to be up on demi-point, and then they would lower the heel as they opened their leg back to tendu. And fun little side note, Flic Flac can be done from devant and derrière positions. Now we mostly see Flic Flac in our frappé combinations at the bar. Sometimes we do it before a pirouette. Now it is more common to stay up in relevé. All of it really depends on the step that you want to do next. Similar to a pirouette. Sometimes you come down, sometimes you whip the leg out to do something else. Which leads me to why we do Flic Flac in the first place. Do you want to guess what the purpose of Flic Flac is? It actually prepares us for pirouettes. Yep, Vaganova kids typically learn Flic Flac before they even move on to pirouettes, and here's why. When you do an en dehors pirouette, you have to feel like your working knee is taking you around. And in an en dehors Flic Flac, we have a slow, broken down movement that helps us find that feeling of the knee starting to lead the turn. Something my teacher says all the time is, knee takes you around, just like in Flic Flac. So that is the feeling that you get before you even start doing a pirouette. You get that feeling in Flic Flac, and then you keep it when you move on to pirouettes in the future. And when we do an en dedans pirouette, we have to feel like the heel is moving forward, and that's what leads us around. So when we do an en dedans Flic Flac, we have that little moment to really make sure we're driving the heel forward before we do the rest of the turn and finish in that high demi-point. This is the perfect way to segue into what the standing heel does during a Flic Flac en tournant, when you turn instead of just doing it flat. So I have seen some dancers do nothing. They stay completely en face for the flick and don't even turn until the flac, which is incorrect. And then I've also seen people do 2 relevés, up and up for each flick and flac, and that's obviously not correct either. Traditionally, the goal for Flic Flac was to be 2 half turns, half a turn for flick and then half a turn for flac, but that almost never happens in real life, so the current accepted way to do a Flic Flac is 1/4 of a turn with your flick and finish out the flac with the remainder 3/4 of the turn. So the standing heel does not go into a full demi-point straight away. For the first quarter of your turn, your heel moves as if you are doing a promenade. The heel raises off the floor ever so slightly, it should almost be invisible, and then you use your flac to help push you all the way up and all the way around, so you finish your Flic Flac in a high demi-point with your foot in coup de pied. This information came straight out of the mouth of my Vaganova coach. So if you have any issues with this, I'm just the messenger. Take it up with her or find somebody else to do a better Flic Flac video, because I have not seen anything that goes into more detail than this video does. So little recap, Flic Flac is to help us prepare for pirouettes, to feel the knee taking us back in en dehors, and to feel the heel taking us forward in en dedans. Flic Flac can also be done from front to back or from back to front. The working leg flicks 2 times by pushing off the toes into a coup de pied position. In en dehors, the foot flicks back and then front. In en dedans, the foot flicks front and then back. You begin a Flic Flac by scooting the standing heel like a promenade for the first quarter of the turn, and then finish the last 3/4 of the turn in your full releve. Depending on what you do next, you can finish your Flic Flac in a releve and extend the leg out into à la seconde to do something else, or you can keep it traditional and finish your Flic Flac with a tendu with a flat foot. It all depends on what you're doing next. So I hope this cleared things up for you a little bit. Thank you for watching. I know my tutorials have been a little inconsistent. A lot of it depends on if or when I can get a studio space. As a lot of you know, I'm going to be moving by the end of the summer, where I will have my own in-home studio and I can crank out those tutorials more consistently. But for now, not sure what I can make in the tiny little slab of space in my living room, but if you keep hitting me with questions and comments, I will keep writing them down and keeping them in mind for future tutorials. Thank you so much for watching. Stay salty. See you next time.